This is Strictly John Keith on City Talk 105.9.
Hello, I'm John Keith and welcome back to Strictly John Keith on City Talk 105.9. My studio guest, former Everton and Ireland midfielder Gareth Farrelly. We've got to the stage in his story where in July 1997, a tribunal decision, Howard Kendall made Gareth the first signing of his third spell as Everton manager, and we've talked about the dramatic end to that season, the goal against Coventry that kept Everton up. But just to talk about Ireland, Gareth, now, when you arrived at Everton, I think you'd already won 3 Ireland caps under Mick McCarthy, hadn't you?
Yeah, Mick did a fabulous job for Ireland, and I have huge respect for him still to this day, because he came in at the end of Jack Charlton's era, and in truth that had been a huge positive time for the Ireland, put Ireland on the map in relation to football, but with regard to infrastructure, set up, back office type, there was not a lot there.
No.
And he did a brilliant job, and I include Ian Evans in that, because from an under-21 point of view, he put together a fabulous group, and we had a fabulous time, and with a huge amount of, you'd say Dublin or Ireland, Irish-born lads breaking through at a similar time. So it was a good time.
And I think the first of your caps was on a tour of America. You were only 20 when you got your first cap.
My first one, luckily enough, was at Lansdowne Road. We played against Portugal.
Right.
And then we played Holland away, and then we went to a US Cup, so picked up some caps while I was over there, which again was a huge experience. But that's where I say the irony lies, that I went back to Aston Villa with more Irish caps than I had Villa appearances.
Yes, well, that's strange. Well, I think Steve Highway, going back even further, he'd actually played for Ireland before he's made his debut for Liverpool in a league game. Yeah. So these things do happen. Those full caps completed the set because, as you've mentioned, you won caps at schoolboy, youth, B international, under 21s who you captained, so you went right through the international set.
Fabulous. And again, there's a few have done it, but to be able to say now 15, 16s youths, 21s B and full cap, it was I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, because there's not a lot of players will have got the whole set like that.
No.
Will there? No.
I don't think they're on eBay either, so it's not too bad.
No. Now, we must talk about a great Ireland player who was with you at Villa, and I know he wasn't only a hero then, he still is, the great Paul McGrath. What a defender he was.
Yeah, Paul McGrath was incredible. I think obviously it's well documented of how he didn't train, or the different elements to his career and the career he's had.
And had a glass of lemonade or two.
Yeah, but you look at, I think now, in the modern time, we hear legend and we hear different things, and in truth, they aren't legends, not in the essence of the word or how you see it, but
they're good players, full stop.
Good players, yeah, and even some at that.
It's overused, I agree.
Completely, and some at that, it's profile building as opposed to actually what actually takes place on a pitch. Whereas for somebody like him, and to be able to watch him week in, week out, he was exceptional. And again, there used to be a joke at Aston Villa that the sponsors would have 2 Man of the Match awards. One was, which they just gave to him every week, and then there was one for one of the other guys. So he was exceptional, but equally he was from Dublin. He looked after me incredibly well from when I got there.
Did you know him in Dublin?
No, not at all. But I'm saying, coming from Dublin,
yes, exactly.
with an affinity immediately. And I say, like, Steve Staunton would have been very good to me, in truth.
Yes.
But I had a natural affinity with him, and obviously we keep in touch now through friends, different things. But anytime I see him, it's always a pleasure. We
had Ron Atkinson on the show, and I've talked to him about Paul McGrath, and he's just in awe of his talent. He said, and sometimes we know he'd been out the night before, and he'd just go out and play magnificently.
I think the worry was if he didn't go out the night before. Well, I think that's when people used to worry.
Well, yes.
No, he was like you say. He was exceptionally strong. He was an incredible athlete, and I think that was one of the things that he was, from a career point of view, and different people have different traits or whatever. He was completely comfortable in that environment. So going into a game, it was like it was a trigger where he was able to perform. And in fairness, his performances at Aston Villa, again in a good team, strong team under Ron, they won the Coca-Cola Cup, did very, very well in the league. Yeah. There was some super players there. He was exceptional.
And you still keep in touch with Paul?
Yeah, I see him. We played in a charity game in Ireland a few months ago. He's still really, really proactive in things he does. So he's was a hero and always will be.
Yeah, he's a tremendous player. I mean, you made a very good point there, and it's one somebody made to me about George Best, because George was known to go out and enjoy himself as well. And they said If you'd taken that away from these players, they might not have performed as they did. Now, is that ridiculous, or is
I don't know if it's ridiculous, but I think you've got it's characters, isn't it? I'm sure
Yeah.
any job,
I
football,
suppose it
anything
is.
anybody do, you've got different characters in a room, an office, a dressing room, and there's different dynamics to their makeup. Now, for him, like you say, he had that ability, irrespective of a day, 2 days, whatever was documented.
Yeah. Yes.
There was, when the game time came, it was a completely different individual, and his performances then completely compounded what you would have anticipated based on someone having a good night out.
Yes.
Under normal circumstances, let alone what he was able to produce on a consistent basis.
And I think I'm right in saying that in Paul's Farewell Island game, you scored another long-range goal. Didn't you?
And again, that was a fabulous day for me, because we'd sort of grown into the squad a little bit. We were a little bit more comfortable there. We were starting to play better, different things like that. So to score on that, it was a fabulous day, huge crowd, which was deserving for him. So it was a good occasion.
What is Paul doing these days? What's he
I
up
think
to?
Paul does different media things. He's got different outlets. He's involved with charities. He loves his golf now.
Yeah.
So, mind you, with the weather, I don't think there's been much golf played.
No,
so.
are you a golfer?
A bad one.
A bad one, but you do play.
I try to, I think I've
Well,
replaced.
there's plenty of places around Southport, isn't there?
I've replaced golf with young children.
Yeah. Can I just, while you were at Everton, there was a rather unseemly comment, I thought, made at an AGM by Peter Johnson about you, wasn't there?
Well, it was me and John Spencer.
Yes, that's right. It was Everton's AGM in September 1998.
Yeah. Again, different times. At that time, there was a comment by him which was seized upon, saying, well, this time last year we were signing the likes of Gareth, Farrelly, whoever, whereas now we've brought in Walter Smith and we brought in players of the like of John Collins and different things like that. So I think it could have been dealt with differently at the time, even from a personal point of view. But again, he tried to make a point, but it was the wrong way of making it.
Yeah, but
to be honest with you, from my own viewpoint, the writing on the wall,
was it? Yeah.
With Everton, for me, was already in place then.
Because as you say, Walter Smith came in after Howard, didn't he?
Yeah. And again, the difficulty in that, I think, for everybody was that I'd sat down with Howard at the end of the season, and people talk about you must have had a fabulous night. But I think there was more an element of relief to have avoided potential of relegation.
Yeah.
And I laugh at relegation now, but from my viewpoint, different people have different stories, and I'm sure you interviewed them about the medals they've won, the lives they've had. But that's a career that's not everybody's.
Exactly.
But equally, it doesn't undervalue what people would classify as an achievement. So staying up and avoiding relegation in the circumstances we did would have been classified as a positive achievement.
Yes, exactly.
And to sit down and sort of say, right, that'll never happen again. We can't have that happen again. And we've learned lessons and everybody's going to move forward. For Howard to be sacked then creates a huge amount of uncertainty, and then for a new manager to come in, and that's the same to this day. The psychology of a footballer is very interesting. As I say, there's so much doubt, confidence, different things that fit in and around that you had a situation where a new man comes in, signs a player who plays in your position, and automatically sits down in front of you and says, well, listen, things might have been good, but I don't foresee you being in my plans.
So now, do you think now the Everton players, they've just lost, they're going to lose David Moyes at the end of this season, will they be wondering now, I wonder what's going to happen to me?
No, I don't think so. As I say, that's down to the individual. And again, I'd have been a more complex character than probably a lot of what the lads are now. And I think that you're in a different situation as individuals, because the players, this is a positive season. So they've just finished, or they will have finished next week, a positive season. So new manager
different
comes
climate
in.
Altogether.
Yeah, and the likelihood is that there'll be more pressure on any manager coming in than there will be on any of the players who are, if you look within Everton squad at the moment, you're talking about a very well-established group.
Indeed.
And people who've done incredibly well. So I don't think that would be an issue as it may have been then.
Right. No, it's a good point, Gareth. That. Anyway, you eventually moved on to Bolton in the winter of 1998. And again, an amazing start. Didn't you score with your first touch on your debut?
Within the first few minutes,
at Sheffield United.
Yeah. Which for me was like we joke about it, saying it was like a form of parole, because I'd had months of disenchantment. And again, I joke about my career, but I probably spent more time with every youth team at every club I was at than with the first team. We'd fallen out of favour with Walter Smith. Football clubs, the politics of a club can be interesting. You train them with the youth team. Yeah. Very, very difficult to remain motivated. People may inquire about you, but you have a situation where you're surrounded in negativity. Oh, well, he's not doing this, or he's not doing that, or he's not whatever. Yeah. So a friend of mine who was a sports conditioner knew Sam and said, listen, he'd be well worth having a look at. And Sam had said, well, I've heard not too many good things about him. And he was like, well, take a chance, I'm telling you, it's not the case. So the loan deal there came about really from the back of that.
Right.
So
right. This is Sam Allardyce.
Yeah. I had an incredible debut, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
But that was on the Sunday, beat Sheffield United 2-1. My father dropped dead of a heart attack on the Thursday, which sort of changed the dynamic of the loan. But I eventually ended up severing my ties from Everton and moving on to Bolton. And again, I had 5 years at Bolton, so the ironies being, although it may have been looked upon that I contributed to their downfall by scoring the goal that kept Everton up, we equally went to in my second season, we got to the playoffs, and we came up through the playoffs and won it at Cardiff at the time, which again was a massive experience, because you sort of taken the decision to step down to try and get back up again, and that happened.
Yes.
So, and then I had an additional 3 years with them. But
so you had a profound effect on the fortunes of two big clubs, didn't you?
Yeah. But again, I was lucky, because at the time Bolton were starting to kick on. He was a young manager, had come in, had an impact. It was and did well, but he had some very, very good players there.
Yeah. Well, after that, you had loan periods, or during that, loan periods at, I think, again at Rotherham, Burnley, Bradford City.
Yeah. And
then you joined Wigan in the summer of 2004. And then you went home to Dublin to become player manager of Bohemians. I think you were then the youngest boss in the League of Ireland, only 29.
That's 28.
28,
just gone 28. To going 29. But
right.
I'd become disenchanted with football. I'd fallen out of love with it. And I think, like you say, you speak about loan deals there, but I think I'd have probably gone on loan anywhere not to be at Bolton. So you end up in up in a spiral.
Yeah.
I went to Burnley on loan, which was a difficult loan. Didn't go very well. I went to Bradford under Brian Robson and Colin Todd, and in fairness, I had a fabulous time with Brian Robson.
Yes.
But again, Bradford were in financial difficulties at the time. I took the option of going to Wigan on a short-term contract because my wife was expecting first child.
Yeah.
So it became more about the logistics rather than the football. I had a difficult time at Wigan, and by the end of that season, having left Bolton, carrying the baggage of all the negativity around what I did,
I could imagine.
I thought, I've played for good managers, bad managers.
Yeah.
I've been given an opportunity to be a player manager. I'll go and do my own thing.
Yes.
I had huge belief in the talent in Ireland, which I still have today, and I went home with quite a firm plan of how we would look at nurturing and developing the talent, but also maximising what was there. The problem is, you think you've got problems with managers, but then you inherit chairman and a board of directors.
Oh, yeah.
So it created different challenges, that did. But again, from a 2-year point of view, it was an incredible experience and a learning curve.
It's said in the book she had a brief stop at Leicester City, but
I came back when I resigned from Bohemians again after it was quite ironic. We had a cup game, and people will always say about the strength and weaknesses of being a player manager, and I think player manager has possibly got more chance of succeeding based on the strength of the structure around them. Now, Bohemians was going through a very, very difficult time financially at that while I was there, in a time where a lot of people had affluence and money, football clubs especially. Some of the budgets in the League of Ireland at that time exceeded possibly League One budgets. So I resigned, decided to come back. A friend, I trained with Leicester for a couple of weeks, and in fairness, I had a fabulous time there, but I signed for Blackpool on a short-term contract.
Yeah.
And the irony with Blackpool, which was funny, was I played in a game against Scunthorpe, and one of the things within the short-term contract, I'd agree that Blackpool was, no one had made me aware of that, how Blackpool structured their appearance money was based on the time you spent on the pitch. So again, that was a Blackpool team that got promoted to the Championship. There were some super players there and had a great time. But I came on against Scunthorpe in one of the games, and I remember trying to block a shot and getting kicked in the groin, and I remember getting my pay slip later on, and I think I got £7.10 gross.
Oh, good gracious.
And I had to
it's not much of getting kicked in the groin.
I know.
Gareth,
I think on eBay I could go on, I'd probably get a better price than that. Even friends and family would probably do it for more than that.
Well, anyway, sorry.
I signed for Cork City after that.
Yep. And by the time you'd played your last league game in England, you'd made 173 league appearances and scored 8 goals. But now, of course, and I think you did briefly play again for non-league Warrington, didn't you? Very briefly. Warrington Town.
One of my best friends at university was there, And he
Right.
asked me to go down for a few weeks, and I went down. But again, my body was at a stage then where I think they played more games in 2 weeks than I'd played over the last 3 years.
Well, there you are now. You're looking well. Football's behind you, and a whole new career opened up with the law. All success in that, Gareth.
Thank you very
And
much.
I'm sure you'll make a big success of it. And thank you for being my guest. And on behalf of Gareth Farrelly and myself, John Keith, from this edition of Strictly John Keith, goodbye.
Strictly John Keith. City Talk 105.9.